I simulated 10 seasons of F1 25 with icons enabled, and it led to one of the weirdest sims I've ever done. As we enter season 1, I must preface that we're only doing 16 race seasons instead of 24. Until Codemasters fix the development speed of the AI and add some regulation changes, the whole grid reaches their peak in like season 5, so the less races, the closer the title fights are. Anyways, starting in the bottom 10, we've got a nice split of points. All of the teams, even VCarb, have picked up double-digit hauls, and it's very close at the back. Moving into the top 9, Alonso's chilling in 9th with a podium, and Antonelli is the typical 8th. Piastri is still way below where he should be considering he's leading the championship in real life, and Hamilton is also far off his teammate, who we will get to. Russell rounds out the top 5 with a singular win and 6 podiums, almost doubling his teammates' total. Starting in 4th, we've got Tsunoda, who picked up his first 2 wins in F1 for Red Bull, Norris in 3rd with 4 wins for McLaren, and a title fight between Leclerc and Verstappen. Despite DNFing in the final race, Verstappen just about beat Leclerc by the small margin of 3 points. In that finale at Abu Dhabi, Russell claimed his one and only win, and Leclerc finished in 2nd place. Just more bad luck for Leclerc, and another example of Max winning in season 1 of a 10-year sim. Never change the script, Codemasters. Red Bull would get back on top in the Constructors' battle, and due to Piastri's bad performance, McLaren have slipped down to 3rd behind Ferrari. Expect that to change in the next few years because it's time for the moves. So we start with our normal grid as you can see here, and in a minute it will be completely different. That is because we got the ball rolling by Verstappen being dropped by Red Bull after winning his 5th title, because Ayrton Senna was available. I mean, I can't blame them, but surely Verstappen's not the one to get rid of here. As for the rest of the grid, Sainz would be replaced at Williams by Jack Doohan, Lawson would move from one toxic environment to another at Alpine, and Colapinto would join VCarb. At Ferrari, Hamilton would be dropped for Norris, and Jacques Villeneuve would make his comeback at McLaren. Keep in mind that both Hamilton and Verstappen haven't retired, they're just free agents. But someone who did retire was Fernando Alonso, who would be replaced at Aston by Ollie Behrman, with Antonelli moving to Haas and Michael Schumacher returning to Mercedes. Yeah, the grid is already fucked. And here's the performance graph of the teams before they all reach their potential. For season 2, the points in the bottom 10 have reduced, and we find Antonelli being outperformed by Ocon at Haas, and both Sauber and VCarb not scoring any points. Just ignore Bortoleto having 2, he didn't get any. We'll move into the top 10 as Albon is 9th with a podium for the Williams team, and Russell once again got a win for Mercedes, although he's down in 8th place. Tsunoda couldn't get a win for Red Bull this season, and I'll spoil it, he's far off his teammate. Piastri was outperformed by the bald head of Jacques Villeneuve at the ripe age of 54, but it only gets worse from here. The Ferraris locked out 3rd and 4th place, with Norris beating Leclerc with similar stats, leaving us with our title battle between Senna and Schumacher. With 3 races to go, Senna led by 1 point to Schumacher, but he would then DNF from Mexico with Schumacher coming 3rd. However, he would recover the points in Las Vegas where he finished 3rd to Michael coming 7th. This put them 5 points apart going into Abu Dhabi. And after a hard battle, it would be Schumacher that came out on top as he managed to extend his lead in the championship from 5 to 8 points to get his record 8th title. Wins were very evenly spread out this season, and goes to show just how much more competitive the seasons are when you get rid of some of the races. It was very close in the Constructors with Ferrari coming out on top, just 12 points ahead of Mercedes and 18 ahead of Red Bull. Maybe McLaren could have snatched it from all of them if Piastri wasn't so underrated in this game. But now it's time for the moves. It starts off ridiculous once again as after winning the title, Schumacher would be dropped and replaced by Max Verstappen. Toto Wolff really wanted Verstappen it seems. But crucially, Schumacher has not retired and wants his 9th title, so we'll see him in the future. But for now, we move to VCarb, who would drop Hadjar for Jack Doohan, who returns to the Red Bull family. Behrman would move to Williams in turn, and Bortoleto got out of Sauber to move to Alpine. The final move would be Paul Aron to Sauber. So I guess winning the title gets you the sack in this sim, so let's see if that trend continues going into season 3. The order at the back has slightly changed again as Alpine are now very bad and Haas have moved up a few places. Lawson also continues to carry whatever team he's at. As we move to the top 10, Albon is once again in 9th place, Piastri has fallen even further down the order with Russell and Tsunoda also being outperformed by their teammates. In 5th, Leclerc got a win but only has 139 points, meaning a lot of those are going to be in the top 4. Verstappen didn't repay Mercedes' faith in him, only coming 4th with 2 wins. And Villeneuve improved to 3rd place with 3 more wins. And this leaves us with Norris and Senna to fight for the title. Those are 2 names that should not be in the same sentence. I think it's pretty obvious then that Ayrton Senna would win the title for Red Bull, beating out Norris by 33 points in the end. He got 6 wins and 11 podiums for a pretty comfortable championship win for this sim standard and helped Red Bull get back on top in the Constructors. It was very close again in that championship as McLaren and Mercedes even ended up level on points, and further down the order, Haas go from 8th to 6th thanks to their good driver lineup. And on the driver lineups, it's now time for the moves. We start off with Red Bull as, oh my god, they dropped Senna. The curse of winning the title continues. And worse, they dropped him for Verstappen. Just get rid of Tsunoda if you want Maxi Pad back. That leaves Senna without a drive for season 4, but don't worry, he'll be back. Villeneuve would jump ship for Mercedes in turn, and if you think about it, this is technically a return as he used to race for BAR. Leclerc would join McLaren in his place, with Sainz rejoining Ferrari after a year out of the sport. But most surprising out of all the moves in this video, Stroll would be dropped by Aston in season 3, with Colapinto replacing him there. A new driver, Solov, would move to VCarb, with Antonelli being replaced at Haas by Paul Aron. O'Sullivan moved to Sauber, Albon got dropped for Bortoleto, Callum Voisin went to Alpine, and finally Hulkenberg retired, leading Doohan to go to Sauber and Marty to complete the grid at VCarb. Once again, let's see if this champion's curse continues to happen. And on another note, I'm not going to be showing the performance charts anymore because all the teams are at their peak performance now. We got a pretty familiar bottom 10, so I won't spend too long here. Just got to mention how Aaron got destroyed by Ocon, and Aston actually have a good driver lineup now with Stroll out of the team. Anyways, moving into the top 10, we have Behrman, meaning Williams have once again secured 5th place. Then comes Villeneuve, who is not enjoying the swap from the best car to the 4th best, with Russell also completely outclassing him. Sainz managed a win for Ferrari on his comeback, but was still behind Tsunoda and Russell, who didn't get a single win. Into the top 4, Piastri is finally starting to improve, and he was just 4 points behind 3rd place Norris, leaving us once again with Leclerc and Verstappen in the title hunt. After the penultimate round in Vegas, Leclerc was 14 points behind Verstappen, and although he finished ahead of him in Abu Dhabi, he was in 4th while Max was 5th, meaning he had cut the lead down by a massive 2 points. Also, Ferrari won too, and this is where Sainz got his only win of the season. So Verstappen was a 2-time champion in the sim, once again with Red Bull. But now it's time to see if Max can keep his drive for season 5. Well, we start at Mercedes as Villeneuve would be dropped for Callie Meyer? Who the fuck's that? Oh, it's the girl from Breaking Point. As you can see, I haven't got a clue. Anyways, Solov would also be dropped, with Vasseur joining VCarb and Marty replacing Doohan at Sauber. This meant Martins would go to VCarb and Taylor Barnard replaced Callum Voisin at Alpine. Colapinto would be dropped for Ollie Behrman, and we have a new face coming in now for Williams. It's fucking Mika Hakkinen. Finally, Sainz would be dropped for Aiden Jackson. Well, at least I know who that is. So, Max kept his seat, and now the curse has been broken, so let's see how long he can keep this up for. Once again, our bottom 10 hasn't changed much, but 10th place Meyer has not really lived up to expectations at Mercedes, and she would be outperformed by Hakkinen in the Williams, who actually managed a podium in that car, grabbing most of the team's points. Ocon was a nice 8th for Haas as he completely carried that team, and 7th is Yuki with 86 points. Aiden Jackson did alright for Ferrari, but he was way off his teammate, who we will soon see. Piastri was 4th once again for McLaren, and ahead of him we had a 3-way fight for the title. We pick it up in Mexico as Verstappen led Leclerc by 12 points and Norris by 21. But in Vegas, Charles would win, Lando would come in 2nd, and Verstappen would finish 6th, opening up a 3-way title decider in Abu Dhabi. Leclerc lined up 1st, Norris in 2nd, and Verstappen in 3rd. But by the end of the race, Norris had won it, Leclerc had fallen down to 5th, and Verstappen had gone down to 4th. All this meaning that Charles Leclerc had won the title by 1 point. We've got to give Norris props for actually getting back into that fight despite being 21 points behind Verstappen after Mexico. The fact that Max bottled it that hard could be a sign that he's about to be fired, and the curse might have just had a bit of a delay. Well, my prophecy would be correct, as Verstappen would be dropped by Red Bull for the 2nd time in just 5 years, despite winning 2 titles for the team. His replacement, Michael Schumacher. That's right, he wants 9. In other news, Marty would be replaced by Vasseur at Sauber, and Voisin returned to the grid with VCarb. Season 6 sees an uptick in the amount of points that teams at the back got, and once again, ignore Vasseur, he's meant to have 8 points, not 18. Bortoleto managed a podium for Williams in 12th, and Lawson also got one for Aston in 10th. But in the top 10, Tsunoda has dropped to 9th, Hakkinen has moved up 1 place to 8th, Meyer has improved and is closer to Russell, who got 2 wins, and Piastri has fallen to 6th place. Aiden Jackson managed to finish 4th with a win for Ferrari, but there's a big gulf of points to the top 3. Well, first it's Norris in 3rd with 224 points, and then a showdown between Schumacher and Leclerc. but it wasn't as close as in previous years, as Leclerc won by 24 points to the Michael as he secured his second title in 2 years. McLaren stay on top in the Constructors, and despite Schumacher hard carrying at Red Bull, they still finished behind Ferrari because of Tsunoda. But now it's time for the moves. There's a lot to go over here. First off, Gasly would be dropped at Alpine for Brendan Ley. Yeah, not a good start. Paul Aron would be dropped for Joshua Pierce. Oh, that's the guy from the F1 movie. Once again, I know fuck all about anything. Hadjar would move to Sauber, with Aiden Jackson getting dropped and replaced by Antonelli at Ferrari. Voisin and Martins would be dropped for Crawford and Hauger at VCarb, and Bortoleto would also get the sack, with O'Sullivan moving to Williams. And finally, after another year out of the sport, Max retired, meaning that somehow, after everything that's happened in real life, Michael Schumacher has outlasted Verstappen in F1. Ain't that a bit mad? For Season 7, we have some new drivers in the bottom 10, including Ley, who actually outperformed Barnard at Alpine, just in case you needed more proof that this game is stupid. Maya has fallen back down to 11th in the standings, although she did get a podium for Mercedes. Pierce was also better than Ocon in his first season in the sport at Haas. But as we move into the top 9, we have a massive surprise as Zach O'Sullivan actually got a win for Williams. And would you believe it? It was at Austria. Again. He still somehow finished behind Hakkinen, but they were equally matched, I guess. Tsunoda has improved to 5th in the standings, but he's still a mile off the top 4. Norris was 4th despite getting 4 wins, just 2 points behind his new teammate Antonelli. That once again leaves us with Leclerc and Schumacher to fight it out. But this one wasn't even nearly close, as the Michael won by 36 points to Charles. Just please ignore his red hat in the picture, there weren't any other good photos where he's directly facing the camera. It's gonna have to do. He had gotten his 9th championship despite only getting 4 wins and still couldn't drag Red Bull to first spot as the Ferraris were a little too consistent for them. Mercedes have almost fallen behind Williams in the standings and nothing else sticks out to me, so let's move to the moves. There aren't as many as last year, but we start off with positive news as Ley was replaced to Alpine by Mark Webber. Ocon would be replaced by David Coulthard at Haas, and Hakkinen was dropped at Williams for Zayn Maloney. And finally, Mayer would be dropped by Mercedes for Behrman, with Aiden Jackson moving to Aston Martin. Let's see if anyone can bring the challenge to Schumacher as he goes for his 10th title in Season 8. Unfortunately for Webber, he's joined Alpine at one of their lowest points as they've only scored 1 point this season, thanks to him. Aston have put up good numbers with Jackson, and Lawson and Haas have also put up a good amount of points, although both have lost out to Williams who, thanks to Maloney and O'Sullivan, keep 5th in the Constructors. As for the rest of the top 10, the Mercedes weren't too great and Piastri was 5th. Leclerc was a lowly 4th despite getting 2 wins, and before we move into the top 3, I can reveal that it was once again a 3-way fight for the title. After Singapore, Antonelli led Norris by 12 points and Schumacher by 39. But by the penultimate round in Las Vegas, Norris had cut the gap down to 7 points, with Schumacher only 24 points behind. So what happened in Abu Dhabi? Well, Antonelli qualified on pole, with Schumacher 2nd and Norris 4th. And despite getting the pole, Antonelli wouldn't score a single point as he bottled the title by finishing 11th. And even though Schumacher won, getting the points to overtake Antonelli, Norris was 2nd in this race, meaning that he would win the title for Ferrari in Season 8. And despite being so far back with a few rounds left, Schumacher would still finish 2nd, with Antonelli going from 1st to 3rd in the standings when it mattered most. I've also lost the screenshot for the constructor standings, so we've had to write it out this time. As you can see, Ferrari walked it, mainly because McLaren were off it and Red Bull only had 1 driver. And this leads me to question, when will Red Bull pull the plug on the Yuki project? Well, into the moves, we start with Lawson being dropped by Aston for his former teammate Ollie Behrman. Leclerc would jump ship to Mercedes in turn, and Schumacher would make the switch to McLaren, leading Bortoleto to move to Red Bull in his place. In other news, Coulthard was replaced at Haas by Crawford and Martins rejoined VCarb. This throws a massive spanner in the works and could see the end of Red Bull being competitive unless Bortoleto can challenge. There's nothing different happening in the bottom 10 each year, so we move to the top 10 where we see Tsunoda in 10th, even worse than last year, and Maloney ahead of him in a Williams. Russell was beaten by Leclerc and Jackson actually did a good job for Aston, carrying them in the Constructors. Bortoleto was an okay 5th for Red Bull, but it's not what they need. This leaves us with both McLarens and Ferraris to fill the top 4. Well, in 4th, as you could probably expect, Piastri was there with a win. But in 3rd, it was last season's champion, Lando Norris, leaving us with Antonelli to fight with Schumacher once again. He did actually have a chance going into the final race as he was 18 points behind Schumacher. But when it mattered most, Michael did actually deliver and won in Abu Dhabi. meaning that he now has 10 drivers' titles and has won for 3 different teams in this sim alone. They don't call him the GOAT for nothing. Despite Michael's efforts, Ferrari still finished ahead of McLaren and Mercedes were third somehow with 216 points. Red Bull would have finished behind Williams and Aston had they not taken so many points off each other as well. So as the dust settles, we have one more transfer window for some more chaos. We start at Alpine where Webber was dropped for Colapinto, and at Williams, O'Sullivan would be dropped for Ayrton Senna. Oh god. Season 10 now, and we might as well just move to the top 10, nothing has changed at the back. Well, Jackson is still in the top 10 for Aston, but just about, and Russell was ahead of Charles this time around. We'll ignore Piastri, who failed to even get 100 points as well. Moving to the top 4, Bortoleto starts us off with a win for Red Bull and a major carry job for the team. And then it's Senna in third for Williams with 3 wins. However, he wasn't very close to challenging the top 2 as it's once again a showdown between Schumacher and Antonelli. After Baku, they were separated by just 1 point with Antonelli leading. And in the following few rounds, they would trade DNFs, meaning that going into the final round, the gap was 6 points in Schumacher's favour. But by the grace of God or something, Schumacher wouldn't finish in Abu Dhabi and Antonelli would not repeat the mistakes of season 8, as he won the title by 9 points thanks to a 3rd place finish. Both drivers suffered 3 DNFs over the season and it was one that was decided on reliability. However, we finally have another Italian title winner for Ferrari. Well, that was a pretty chaotic sim, especially compared to the one I did last week, which is on screen right now for you to watch if you haven't already.